What's happening,
What's going on?
man? Good to have you on, brother. How's
Thanks, man.
nice little ski adventure
Yeah,
last week?
yeah, yeah. Annual ski trip that fills my bucket, if you will. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely need that time, that
yeah.
balance.
What for you, like in that moment? Like I'm not a skier. Hey, I tried. I put my valiant effort in. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. I'll go. I'll sit. In the bar. I'll wait on you guys. But like for you, because I know talking with Al, Stasic. I mean, that's where he's out right now. He's on
he
a
was
10
just out.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's on a 10-day adventure. They're bouncing around
yeah,
all over the place, and it's very um, uh, mindfulness. It resets them. I mean, it really is kind of grounding for him. What is it for you? Being able to do that and get away.
yeah. Well, it's a great question, and it's something that I actually thought about not too long ago because the there's different types of skiing, right? One is very much groomed and following the natural path or the man-made path, right? And that's just not the way I ski, which ultimately is, I think, relates back to how I run my business too, because I spend most of my time in the trees, dodging shit, dodging trees, making sure you don't get your skis stuck in roots and uh, taking the harder path, which ultimately I believe is actually how my business runs too. Um, but for me, it certainly is a reset, right? Being in the trees, being in the woods, being in a mountainside that is dangerous. There's a ton of obstacles that can seriously harm you, and you have to be on all the time, or you can really make mistakes. And uh, that to me is got it's a very peaceful. And now I say all that, right, and while it's dangerous and you need a certain physique in order to even get through all that, you know, it's peaceful to me. Nothing else is going through my mind. I'm not worried about work. I'm not worried about emails. I'm not worried about deals. I'm not worried about lawyers. I'm worried about not hitting a fucking tree. And
Yeah.
that to me has got serenity to it. And it certainly resets me. And
Yeah.
to be honest, like, some of these hills are quite large. So you get through a tree, it could be 30, 40 minutes in this tree getting through it. And, stopping and taking the time to really understand where you are and just, taking in, you're not in your own comfort zone. You're in a dangerous situation. Like, that to me is refreshing. But like I said, it's, uh, going through the difficult part, and doing the trees and getting into the woods, like it's dangerous, and it certainly takes a focus, and I think it's very similar to our business where you can take the easy path, or you can get uncomfortable and do some really cool shit.
Yeah. No, I love that. And you're so spot on, right? It's that singular focus and nothing
Yeah,
else matters in that moment, right? Like you're
yeah,
so like on that. And a safer way of that is that can kind of still get you there is even like cooking. And like when you're trying to prepare, a meal and something that you can kind of even relate to this even, in the restaurant business and running, right?
yeah,
You're not thinking about all the other things, right? You're just like what
right,
you're so focused and dialed in on that task. And so finding that release to be able to zone out and stretch that focus muscle. I think
yeah,
too, like when you're out there, obviously, the nature side of things and out there experiencing that, it does also help reduce stress, right?
yeah,
So a stress relief as well.
yeah,
That's so
yeah,
important, to
yeah,
do all of these things, but it's reconnecting with nature that does that. And everybody can find it. Even, you know, um, like my thing is water, right? So being able to get, grounded, reconnected, it doesn't matter if it's a river, it doesn't matter, ultimately love the beach, but it doesn't have to be. But
yeah,
water is definitely that for me.
yeah. And that's, I think, anybody that's running a company, whether it be two people, to 500 people, and I've been in both scenarios, right? And you need that time to decompress. And to your point, it could be water, it could be sand, it could be trees, it could be snow. You need that time to let your mind be free.
Yeah.
That's extremely important. We try to do it. My wife and I try to do it probably every 6 or 8 weeks. Like most people may not think of it that way, but we don't take long vacations in 3 weeks and a month. I take 3 days, and we do some really epic, cool stuff in that 3-day period. But we do it consistently because we'll work 70, 80 hours a week until for 7 weeks, and then go on holiday, right?
Yeah,
So
100%.
you need that time.
You do, and so take us back a little bit, man. Unpack a little bit of your life before real estate, kind of
Yeah.
your background. Give some context to kind of the conversation here, so people can kind of start to understand a little bit more
Sure.
about you and kind of the path and what's led you to this point.
Yeah, I had probably a pretty interesting career outside of real estate. I mean, this is probably my third career, I guess you would say. I started early, right out of university, and really getting into technology. So I was in telecommunications. I think everybody in their 40s or like in their late 30s, early 40s probably did a stint in cell phones, or whether it be AT&T or Bell, or in Canada it's Bell and Rogers. But I worked in a predominant it's called Bell World, right? And that was when Blackberries were coming into effect, and I sold a ton of Blackberries. So a top rep in in that company for a couple of years, and really just kind of going through the rungs, becoming a manager. And really that was the first time I understood like individual contributor versus management, and understanding, hey, like do I really enjoy, especially at 20, I'm like, do I really enjoy this process of managing other people, like, at such a young age? But ironically, the way that I got into real estate at the time, I managed an account, and it was the Remax account, actually. So the broker owners came in the one day, and I was like pairing one of their Blackberries to their new 750 IL BMW, which at the time I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, what kind of money these guys have?
Yeah.
So we created this relationship, but it was a really much a service relationship, and I actually cared about them, and I did a ton of business with their reps. So we became kind of the de facto standard just through providing an incredible service. And through that process, they came in the one day and they're like, nah, you're going to work for us. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm doing okay here. Like, I'm 21 years old. I just got back from Africa, which was a wicked trip. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And then they came back the next day and said, no, like, here's our offer, and we want you to be the director of career development, which is a really fancy title for a recruiter. So I became the recruiter for the fastest growing Remax office in Canada. So when I started, we were at 3 offices. And when I left in 2008, when kind of the demise of a lot of real estate in North America, at that time, we were at 10 offices. We were the fastest growing Remax in North America, and the largest Remax office or brokerage in Canada. So a really cool, way to get into real estate. I wrote my license at the time, didn't really do too much about it. But in 2008, I actually got out of real estate totally. So that was like, I was there for 3 years, recruited a ton of agents, learned a ton about the business, how to really run a brokerage, because I was on the executive staff, which I had no business being a part of. I was 20, I was 21, 22. And, I had a giant cherry wood desk in like a, corner office. I think I probably lost some friends. I was too young to have that kind of responsibility. And I think my ego probably got the best of me, if I had to be totally honest. So I took a haircut, and went into tech at that time. I was like, you know what? 2008 was really tough for a lot of people. So I actually went into technology company. And at that time, I still had all these connections in telecom. So I ended up going to BlackBerry. So research in motion for all of you guys that remember the BlackBerry days.
I love my BlackBerry. I was hanging on to it for dear life until
man. If Apple made anything with a physical keyboard, they would have been dead years before. But anyways, I went there. I started from the ground level. I was inside sales. I probably took a 50% pay cut, but I was like, I got to get in grassroots. This company is growing at a phenomenal rate. I was there for 5 years and ran through the rungs pretty quickly. Just based on being again another individual contributor and really just understanding technology and you're staying up on the speeds and feeds, which ultimately as you get older, being in that technology space and keeping up with speeds and feeds becomes very difficult because your brain's not developing any further in your 30s and 40s, right? So I ended up 2012. I was there for 4 or 5 years. In 2012, the demise of BlackBerry. So I ended up getting laid off just like 10,000 other people. And within 2 days, the VP of Verizon business unit had started this new company called Magna Forensics. And so 6 people, it was, I was the 6th. And to give you an idea, that company was really cool. I mean, the whole premise of that company and the founder was an old police, high-tech crime unit police officer. So he developed this algorithm, which essentially would allow you to carve and parse through deleted data on tablets, cell phones, and laptops. And its prime focus was to collect and analyze child pornography. So the mission was all about child exploitation and catching bad guys doing, things that they shouldn't be doing within, child pornography, which from a mission perspective, and like you want to fill your bucket, get a part of a company that has just that kind of vision and that mantra. It was unbelievable. So I was there for many years. I spent a good chunk of my career there. We grew that company from, 200,000 a quarter to, well, when I left, we were doing about 45 million. And we had 300 plus employees and they IPO'd. So like, it was just such an incredible part of my journey. I met some incredible people, which my mentor, 2 mentors actually from that company that I still talk to quite often. Phenomenal business people. And I built a huge network locally that when I did leave there, I converted that into my real estate SOI, right? Because they saw, like at the time too, like, these young developers were, buying nice cars, and they're like, "Oh, bring Sadler over. We'll book a board meeting, and we'll get Sadler to negotiate for us." So, like, I was negotiating people's Audis, and I was like, like, I just became that guy. So it was funny because these guys were like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had the talent to do that." And I was like, "I wish I could code the way you do." Like, you had different, talents.
Yeah.
So through that process, they already knew how I sold, how I negotiated, and it became a really easy transition to when I did start my real estate career, reaching out to these guys and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing now. I'd love to be able to help you." And certainly they already knew how I worked and, the way that I negotiated on their behalf in the past. So it was a pretty easy transition. Obviously we fast forward a couple of years. I did some kind of not retired, but did some just like freelance and consulting work out of Sweden. But then, I said to my wife, like, it gets to a point where you can't golf all the time. You can't, like, nobody can play, right? It's like Monday afternoon. You're like, "Hey, is anybody want to go?"
Yeah, you're by yourself.
Like, yeah. They're like, "No, like you should go get a job." So I said to my wife, I'm like, "What do you want to do?" And she said, she always wanted to own a restaurant. She was very passionate about wine and very passionate about food. And so I said, "Okay, well, let's do that." And like 3 days later, we bought a restaurant. And then she said to me, she's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I'm like, I think I'm going to go back to real estate. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think that's what I'm going to do. So the same year, we started the real estate company and she started a restaurant. Now, I don't suggest anybody does this.
I don't suggest anybody do that.
No, this is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 6 years ago now, so it worked out. She's got one of the best restaurants in our region, and she's still passionate about it. She does an incredible job. Her restaurant's just
Amazing.
I'm very, very proud of her. And for myself, I mean, obviously we started at Remax. We sold 48 houses in our first year. Rookie of the year, Hall of Fame my second year. Get all the accolades that doesn't pay your mortgage and nobody cares about, but they sit on my desk and collect dust. So that's cool. And really like the whole, it's how we got here today was, just looking at a better system, right? Like what's the better way? Like, and I have no disrespect towards Remax. I've worked for them twice, right? In two different capacities. I was very fortunate to be, close to my broker record, and the broker owner, his office was across the hall from me. And so I learned a ton through that process, but for me, it made more sense. I wanted to build my own culture. I wanted to build my own office. I wanted to build out my own company. I knew that I didn't need a balloon or whatever. I didn't need that branding behind me because of my network in the region and everything that I built personally outside of real estate prior. So that led me to a different, and this could be anybody, right? But this led me to EXP, right? Where and I know that I'm no longer the director of career development, so I'm not going to recruit for EXP today. But that model just made sense for what I was trying to accomplish. And I got to build out my own office. I mean, we started with one admin, two agents, and that quickly grew to 2 admin and 10 agents, and moving from a smaller commercial space into now a 5,000 square foot office and a boardroom. And ironically, the first book I ever read, business book, David Chilton's book, this was David Chilton's office. So, which is just wild to me. I'm sitting in David Chilton's book, old boardroom, which is now our boardroom. So it's unique the way that it's working. But again, it's like I said with skiing, like we didn't take the easy route. We took a path less carved. And I'm dodging trees every fucking day. But that's how it is.
It's how it is, man. A couple things that really stand out. I had opportunity to come up there with you a couple weeks back, and one of the things that really stood out and noticed, just even with you coming in, but being able to see the restaurant firsthand, just to see kind of the event. The one thing that really stood out is that, the details, the standard, right? That's the word that really resonated with me, was you have such a high standard of excellence, like the details. And I think this is where a lot of people miss. And this is why they don't achieve bigger and greater things, is because they don't pay attention to the details. And just even like, the restaurant and how, everything was on point, and how it was served and put together, and they came out and introduced each of the meals, and just to all the detail. But then over into the event, like the bags, when you showed up, was like the best gift bag that you could ever possibly imagine, right? But just how everything was paid attention to, the details were such on point, but to that standard. For you, I mean, it seems like, why wouldn't you have high standards? Why wouldn't you have that? But it's just not as common as you see. So like for you, where was that developed? Where was that high level, that high standard developed for you?
I think it's once you put your own time and your own money into it, right? Like that's, I don't think it was necessarily developed. I think over time I was told, and you get the report cards, like, if you put a little bit extra effort, he would be an A student, right? And I don't think I really developed that until I drove the bus, right? Yeah. Once I was driving the bus, I realized, all right, this has got my name on it. It's got my face on it. It has to be perfect. And, I think it's easy to not worry about it. You can skate through life, probably most of it, without really paying attention to the details and really offering the best of yourself. Like you have versions of yourself, right? And I can either wake up and I talked to my sponsor, Brandon. We've talked about this lots of times. It's like, if you don't care enough, nobody else is going to, right? And if you want to create a following and you want to create a network of individuals that are really looking for excellence, you need to provide them the best possible version of yourself. And that requires details.
Yeah, it does. And, that's why I always tell people, like, if somebody ever comes along and tells you details don't matter, like, you need to get away, because
it's not your guy.
because you look at, you look at it from a standards perspective. You look at the overarching, right, like the whole results and actions and feelings and thoughts and environment, right, that whole kind of that equation. The overarching of that is standards. And being able to really pay attention to that. And had one of our longtime clients, and he dropped a little mic drop of, the only standards you have are the standards you enforce. And so like for you, all paying attention to all of those details, right, like how important it is for you and everything that you do, and they see that you care, then that ripples out into the rest of the organization and everybody else.
Well, you got to be careful too, because you can't be on all the time. Like, as much as we try, right? But if you take an extended break of detail, and you take an extended break and not being the best version of yourself, you'll lose people. And I've gone through it, right? I had not to say that every year has been amazing for me. I've had some tough years where people are like, is this the guy? Or is this the person that I want to follow? Or can I do it better than he's doing it? And at the time, I'm sure they were probably right. But you got to be able to bounce back from that and be like, okay, well, that's not the best version of me. I need to do better. I need to be better for my people. I need to be better for my administration staff. I need to be better for me, because if you're not doing it for you, then you can't do it for other people. So, you need to be cognizant of it, and you certainly need to surround yourself. Like, the details too don't come necessarily just from me. Like, we're setting the standard, but I'm surrounding myself with incredible people, incredible women that certainly know how to keep me on track. Which you need to have that accountability balance. And if, whether it's at the gym, I have an accountability. Brandon, thank you for making sure that I go to the gym. Jag is accountable. She keeps me accountable to revenue generating and continue to push the envelope and wanting to get bigger. Because when I say, I think we're okay, I don't want to get too much, she's like, nah, we got to grow. And I know you want to grow. You're just not, today you don't want to grow, but tomorrow you will. So you're surrounding yourself with people that are just as detail oriented as you, and that want to push you and see what you may not see that day in you. I feel blessed for that. And anybody that has people around them that are pushing them, they're not pushing because they actually care. They're pushing because they see and know that you are better than what you're doing today. And that you should be blessed for.
Yeah, it is, man. I really, where that lesson, for me, when we were spending a lot of time working with Jay Abraham, and he was he keynoted a couple of our big events, and I don't know if it was the first time or second time, and we were walking back to his suite with him, and his wife was just chewing his ass, right? Like, just
really?
on him, and he was just taking it.
Yeah.
And we get into the room, and he changes and comes and sits out with us in the suite, and he said, it's amazing when you have people that are as close to you, like my wife is, that cares to hold me to a different standard because I want to be the best version of me every time, every day. And so she was just like, she was really laying into him about his carrying on, talking too long, cutting people off, right? Like, just the little nuanced things that nobody else would ever say to him.
Yeah,
but she does. And to your point, surrounding yourself with the people that are holding you to that level because they know you want to be held to that level, right? The highest form of love, the highest form of accountability, right? So being able to have that in who you surround yourself with, I think really, really, says a lot for us.
Tough to swallow sometimes too, right?
It's real hard.
Yeah, you have to be prepared to take some shit off the chin because that's the only way you're gonna learn. My wife's really good at it. So
Yeah,
she's gonna watch this, and I'm gonna get more. But no, you're 100% right. Like the
yeah,
people that actually care the most, are the ones that believe in you, are the ones that are gonna be the hardest on you, and it's
always.
really tough to take sometimes.
Yeah, and it's when you sit back and reflect on it, man, you're like, the only reason they're doing it is because they care and they
Yeah,
know that you want to be better, and
yeah,
that's the only reason. So, man, one of the thing, and you kind of hit on it. It was fascinating, right? Like just kind of uncovered, and it was just one of the stories, and it said a lot, right, about why even what you're doing, why even you did the event, right? Why you're just
yeah.
always from a place of contribution and added value was your experience to your trip to Africa. Man, I would love for you to share that story. And I got some in the back of the room. I got filled in on some details about it as well. So it was
Oh
really
yeah,
it was really awesome. So yeah, I mean, I would love for you to just kind of how did that even happen, right? How did you even
yeah. You
end up
know,
over
it's interesting that we're talking about people that love you the most are the ones that push you the most, and the ones that see things that you don't, right? And that to me has always been my mother. Like single mom most of my life, and just a wonderful superwoman. She's just salt of the earth,
there?
incredible human being. It kind of starts with her story. I mean, my mom is 54, 55, 56, right? So now I'm 40. So give you an idea, quick math. She was really young. So, and at that time, like we didn't have a lot. We didn't come from a lot. We struggled a lot. And I was cleaning out some, and this all goes there. Africa.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
letting go. But when I was cleaning out some of my stuff when I moved, like when I was like maybe 30, um, I found one of her T4s, and I would have been in like grade 12, right? So I'm like 18, and it was like 14 grand. So this woman we're going on ski trips. Well, one ski trip. We had to sacrifice Christmas for it, but we still got we didn't live in a big house. We lived in a small apartment. We had a really shitty car. It was, I don't know if you remember the Lotta, but we called it the Lotta shit. But it was, brand new, 6 grand, right? So the whole concept there was like she wanted me to be more, right? And I look at that now when between the ages of her being like I moved out of the house, she was 36 years old, right? By that time to today, she's now retired.
Mm.
So she's had that growth mindset of like we gotta hustle. I couldn't do it when I was younger, I have to do it now. And I'm so proud of her because what she's accomplished in a 20-year span is what most people do in a 50-year
All
span.
that. Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. She's such a phenomenal superwoman. Mom, I love you if you're watching this. But she was the one that pushed me to be better at that age. I was 15, 16, 17. I mean, I was having fun. I was just probably just a little shit sick, if I had to guess. You're right. But she pushed me. So my first one, I went to Guatemala, and she sent me, I was 15 years old. She sent me for a month and a half. And the purpose of that was my family was Spanish, and I was the only one that didn't know Spanish. So I went and lived with a family in Antigua, and half the day I was in Spanish classes, and then the other half of the day I was traveling kind of through Guatemala by myself and just going on cool adventures. So that was the first one. I really liked that. I came home, I knew Spanglish, but when I was 19, my sister wanted to go on a trilateral exchange program or an exchange program. So she's like, I don't want to go to the interview by myself. Will you come with me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go there, and they do all these not games, but like they put you into groups, and they're like, hey, create your own language, and then you need to communicate. You get to come back together and then kind of try to communicate, and you have to create your own language. So my sister didn't get chosen for this trip. I did,
Oh,
and she went to I know. She ended up going to Katima Vic and to France, whatever. She got her own. She ended up doing one as well. But on my mom, like when I got chosen, I was like, I'm just there to help Tanya. I'm not interested in doing this. She's like, no, you're going. You're going to raise 5 grand because that's part of the Canada World Youth program was you had to raise money and then they would match that money. And through that process, I ended up going to Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia for just under a year and a half. And that wasn't like it wasn't, hey, we're gonna go, change the world and build roads, and it wasn't that. The whole premise of this trip was around sustainable development and biodiversity. So we had 6 Canadians, 6 Kenyans, 6 Tanzanians, and then we just kind of alternated where we were. So we went from Haliburton in Canada, which is a very diverse kind of northern city that does a lot of things from the land. So we spent about 6 months. So through that process, you get thrown into the middle of the Ngorongoro forest, which is at the base of Mount Kenya, in a Maasai tribe in the middle of the night. So, you sit in this cow dung hut, you're like day one, and this Maasai warrior comes through with red shuka beads and a rungu and a panga, and you're like,
Yeah.
what? Where am I?
What did I get myself into?
Oh yeah, and we're in a land and animal conservation to the point where one night a lion came and took one of the cattle. I'm sleeping 40 feet from this, right? And so a wild experience. Each one of those portions of the trip really taught me something different. Kenya and Tanzania are vastly different. Most people just think, oh, Africa's Africa. It's like, no, their cultures, from the Kikuyu to the Maasai tribe to the inner city, there's a massive difference in culture. But the biggest thing that I learned, and this is what ties into what we do today, and I think why I care so much about people and why I want to be involved in other people's successes, is that, in Canada, the family values are just different, right? We're obviously in Canada, there's a mash of a lot of family values, right? We have a lot of Germans, a lot of Polish, we have lots of cultures. Their culture was, they eat together, they sleep together, they pray together, they work together, and they have fun together. And that is every day, day in, day out. That to me, I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And it had a profound effect on my life. It became a fundamental to me that was okay, I want to build something. I want to be a part of something like that. I haven't been a part of something like that since Africa. So Magnet was very close. We were a very close team. We ate together, sleep together, but we were a very close team. And culturally, in a tech community, that wasn't really found. So we grew quickly because there was such a tight knit community. And certainly through real estate, I believe that real estate had that prior to my time in real estate, because this was pre-COVID, and you could still present offers. You still, the boards were probably smaller too. Not everybody was like, hey, this is, I can make millions of dollars. I'm going to go write my license. And then, so I think the industry may have had that 10, 15, 20 years ago. But one thing I identified that doesn't exist anymore. And that was really important. I think good brokerages can provide that and produce that, but agnostically, not at all. I don't think the boards do a good job of it. The boards are pushing some other agenda, or there's no hey, you fly one flag, I fly another one. Why can't we collaborate?
Yeah.
We're not competitors. I don't look at any one of my colleagues as a competitor. The only time that I look at them as a competitor is when we're going into a listing appointment. Now it's on.
Yeah.
Right. But outside of that, I don't care. And negotiating contract, this is a win-win. If I piss you off and I come out with you something ridiculous on paper, it's not going to work anyway. So we need to find that win-win solution. And further to that, I need to be able to go have a beer with you after, or a glass of wine, or kombucha, whatever you're into, right? So building that community and providing so much additional value and contribution, that's what I believe is actually missing in our industry today. And I think it's getting better. Models such as, whether it be EXP or your Real or whatever, right? I mean, these models are fostering this kind of activity, which I think is a great direction. Not to say that the traditional brokerage models don't do that. They just do it in-house if they do it well. and they're not really interested in providing a bunch of extra value or contribution to people that aren't flying their flag. And that to me, that doesn't make sense. I think it's kind of backwards.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. And yeah, just being such a young age to travel and experience that. I was, just talking last night, just kind of sharing, what my son's doing, being
Yeah.
in the Air Force, last year in South Korea. Now he's in Germany, and he's already been over to Dublin. His
Well,
birthday's, in about 10 days, and he's going to Switzerland. He's going to see Tyler Childers, of all people, in Amsterdam in March. And it's
oh,
like,
yeah.
and I'm just like so happy for him, so proud of him to be able to experience that and have that. And, just how to see different perspectives and how, people value things and what their value system, how they make decisions, what are
Yeah.
their standards. And it's just, I think, just rounds you into really that. And it was one of the questions at the event, and around emotional intelligence and
Yeah.
how critical that is. But it's hard to have that understanding without those experiences, right? Being able to
Yeah.
see different perspectives and see different like I said, different value systems, different beliefs. And it really is, I think, as a leader, it's so important to have that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the whole layers deeper concept of if you've got people, you don't know their story. You don't know,
Yeah.
when you bring somebody in that's under your watch, yeah, we're hiring them for a function. We're hiring them for a particular output. However, they are a human being too, right? And so from a
Right.
leadership perspective, I mean, I think it's one of those skill, leadership's a skill. So to me, being able to have that different perspective, just accelerates that understanding to become, a leader at a different level.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't even realize they are leaders. They naturally have it, right? You can attract people naturally, and people do have it naturally. Some have to learn it. Some have to, and to be honest, I've never been the natural leader. I think I've learned that process and what it looks like. I'm still learning it for sure. How to be a more effective leader, how to be more attentive. You know, and to better understand what people's goal sets are. They're not mine. Just because I have my own set of goals doesn't mean that you're going to follow mine. Like, you need to really understand what yours are, and that takes, that takes coaching, like I do with you, right? It takes travel. It takes emotional intelligence, understanding what people are really striving to do. Because just because I want to sell 500 houses this year doesn't mean that anybody else does.
Right.
And I they may not be motivated by money. They may be motivated by something totally different. So understanding that, and the faster you can understand that within your own organization, better off you're going to be. Well, better off everyone's going to be, to be honest.
Yeah, man. From your leadership perspective, experience, background, things that kind of that shaped you to who you are right now. Where do you see kind of the future of real estate, the business of real estate, as far as on from what you guys are doing on
Yeah.
the team and working with buyers and sellers, investors, builders. Like, where do you see kind of, obviously pull out the crystal ball here, but where do you see that moving, things going into the future?
Well, to be honest, I had this conversation maybe 2 weeks ago. I wanna be the first agent to transact using crypto. I want to help facilitate the process within RICO and ARIA and Korea, which is all the governing bodies within Canada, to better understand, like, how can I? Because right now I cannot give you, let's say, 5 Bitcoin, do FinTrack, my APS, my confirmation cooperation, and then submit it to a lawyer. I can't do that. Why not? Like, we're going down this path already that we can utilize crypto for currencies of cryptocurrencies of some nature, whether it be Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. And being the tech guy that I am, I'm like, how do I bring tech back into my real estate business? So I would love to understand and better understand how we can actually mainstream that purchase process and that sale process utilizing cryptocurrencies. I think that would be really, really cool. I invested in a company a couple of years ago, which is it's a crypto mining company, which also is local because we're living this kind of look, they call it the Silicon of the North, if you will. And this company not only mines, but it also has a cryptocurrency and a crypto bank. And yes, I know there's lots of these like, hey, this is not real stuff, but like I actually know the owner and we worked at BlackBerry together. And a tremendous guy owns a company called Data City. So in this regard, I'm working with them to say, okay, how can we transact major, purchases with cryptocurrencies? And I think that to me is something that I think we're still 5 years out because there's just not a process.
Yeah. What are the hurdles that have to be overcome for that to
well, right now, FinTrack and the feds aren't really, they're not looking at, nor can they track where any of this came from as far as the funds are concerned, right? So that becomes very, very difficult. I think that's one hurdle. FinTrack and really like doing the receipt of funds, like, okay, well, it's over 10 grand. Where did the money come from? Well, it's not really money. I mean, it's cryptocurrency. So it's, the whole concept of FinTrack doesn't really fit that, because they can't see where the money's coming from. They can't track it. So there's one. Number two is like right now I can sell my house to you, John. If you give me 5 Bitcoin, I can just go to the lawyer and be like, all right, well, he's going to give me that. I'm going to use that. I don't care. But that to me is currency. And I can do that. The lawyer can. The bigger problem becomes, okay, well, there needs to be a dollar amount associated with the trade of title. Well, there's not a dollar amount associated to that title because it was crypto. So, just having a difference of currencies and what actually is like what is the title insurance company going to want? Yeah, 5 Bitcoin? No, like they're going to want, no, it's 250 grand or whatever, right? So there's a couple of components there. The other is there's no paperwork, transactional paperwork that would allow us to do that. So like the APS wouldn't work, the confirmation of cooperation won't work. It's like, so it has to be just edited or amended in order for us to be able to utilize that kind of currency. And that to me is something of tremendous value and potential growth down the line. Now, granted, that's my personal, like, hey, I want to see this happen. I want to be one of the first steps to do this. But as far as where I believe that, real estate's going and as far as a future basis, I don't actually think they can take out agents, right? I like a lot of people are like, oh, the agent's going to be distinct in 5 years, or distinct rather. But I just don't believe that. I mean, I can also sell my own car. I've been able to do this for years.
Yeah.
But I trade that thing in. It's just easier. I get a taxable rebate. Like there's benefits to it that make it just, am I going to take probably a $3,000 loss on pretty much any car that you trade in? Of course you are, because there's got to be money for somebody else to make, right? Just same reason that we don't see for sale by owners or property guys or whatever. Like these discounted brokerages, they don't function because people still want to have that connection, that belly to belly service. And if you're providing an exceptional service that is over and above anything else, cost aside, you will always win. That's, it's the basis of sales. It's like, don't talk about price. Don't talk about speeds and fees. Provide value-added services. And if you provide that value-added service, people are willing to pay for it because you have insurance, number one, right? There's a connection from human to human, but you're also an expert at the transactional process and negotiating. So if I can make you more money in less time, would you be willing to do that? Of course. So for me, I think technology is going to come in a big way, which we've already seen in the last 5 years. If you haven't seen, like, technology in real estate in the last 5 years has leapfrogged the last 20.
Oh,
so it's been absurd. So I think the transactional process will be easier. I think access to data will be even easier. Zillow's already doing that. Zolo's doing that. I mean, the whole concept of how consumers can educate themselves will continue to escalate and become more available. But I think deciphering that data and better understanding what to do and how to manipulate, but decipher it is really what the agent's position is going to roll into. Is like, how does this read? How does this make sense? How can we decipher it for the benefit of us? I think that the scope of the agent position just changes a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's got to be elevated, right? The professionalism, it's like,
Yep.
is there going to be a thinning of the herd? Absolutely. And I mean, you guys are already doing it. This is the one thing that I love about, not anybody in it. You can't just like here in the States, just go get your real estate license, right? Like it takes time. I mean, I was, I kept asking while I was up there. So, I mean, it's a 2-year program. The university has control over it. You can collapse time. The fastest that I heard kind of just in conversation was a little over 6 months. Most that really like full time, it's 9 to 12 months on a 2-year program if you're just dedicated to doing it. And there's major advantage to that professionalism, right? At that level. And so it keeps that off, that thinning out. I mean, you come down here in the States, you go to Dallas, right? Like literally you go sit at the bar, and I guarantee you, of the wait staff and bartenders, 75% probably have the real estate license. I mean, it's just, it's wild. Right. So,
and we used to be like that. It was like when I wrote my license, I think it was 5 phases, and like you could do them in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks. So I think when I wrote it, I think I did it in like 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And I was like back to back to back to back. So it's like you were already booking your next one before. Like you had to get your exam results before you booked the next one, but I could book my next exam 2 weeks later, which we saw a massive influx. But to your point, we saw the thing I heard this year, right? What was it? Like, I think NAR came out and said like 70 or 80,000 already gone.
Yeah.
Like that needed to happen anyways. Mm-hmm. But I've done the math. Actually, I was talking to Greg a couple weeks ago. We were talking about like, just do the math. If we have 17, I think, well now because we had 2 boards merged. So I think we're like, call it 2,500 agents. And let's say that we lost 20% of them, which is probably pretty close, right? Like we're 400 or 500 people gone already, just out of our board. And if each one of them, and the average is 5 deals, but I'm not even going to suggest that they did 5 deals. If each one of them just did 1 or 2, there's 1,000 transactions potentially that are now up for grabs. That their mom didn't get, their uncle, the cousins, the uncle, whatever, some family member or best friend. Those are now all up for grabs. So if you could. If you could build the boat and you could sail the boat for long enough, you could actually, you'll be in a good position going into the next 5 years.
I couldn't agree more. And man, it's going to be those that are committed to being world-class at the profession, right? That are educated, that are knowledgeable, that are resourceful, that, just always looking to come from a place of adding value, I think is where it's going to go, and really building trust. I think no matter what happens, real estate will always come down to a decision of trust. And that's just my definition is just authenticity times time, right? Being vulnerable, being transparent, adding value times time is what builds trust. And those agents that keep doing that and think, not thinking about the one transaction, but thinking about the lifetime value, I think will thrive.
I think that's such a key thing. Like, a lot of there's 2 kind of parallels that I run there. And one is like, hey, like each transaction, each client is not worth 10, 12, 15 grand. It's worth 100 over the course of the lifetime. Now that sounds bad if you look at it from, hey, we're just talking about clients and a monetary value. That's not the point. To your point is, if I'm doing the right things for the right people all the time, I don't have to worry about money. I'll never have to worry about it because I'm doing right by, whether it be somebody that's a cold call PPC lead or, referral that I've gotten 5 times over. If you're doing right by your clients and you actually care about the transactional process, you will accidentally become world-class.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it all depends on what your vision is to start with, right? If your vision is to become world-class, you'll do these things naturally, or vice versa. If you're naturally, care about people, you naturally have that ethics and that, that moral code, you'll accidentally become world-class because it's just built within you. And I think that's the difference. A lot of people that are getting out of the business are doing it because they're like, oh, I can make great money.
Yeah.
You can also lose money really quickly.
Right?
Wrong reason right away. Yeah.
No, for the wrong reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
Brother, I appreciate you. It was absolute gold, as I knew it would be. Appreciate you carving out the time, jumping in here, adding a ton of value, and really giving some more perspective on what it really takes to go from just being an agent to really being CEO, not only of your business, but of your life.
Core 4. Let's
Core
go.
4, baby.
Core 4, baby. Appreciate it. Thanks, John. Appreciate having me on. And look forward to all of our future chats. So.
You got it, bud. We'll see you.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
See you.